All right. Hello and welcome to Robert Jean Smith. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Been a busy day already, working with clients and an interview. So I'm excited.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. Just to start off, could you talk a little about your own health journey? How you ended up trying all these different modalities
Mhm.
before you ended up coming to creating Faster EFT? What was that process?
Well, I think my journey basically starts with not really health, but emotional health is health. And most people
Hmm.
don't realize that. Of course, I think the real start of it, really, we started at the beginning was, I was like 15 years old. I was born in a normal dysfunctional family that
Hmm.
functioned perfectly well. And I went to Louisiana to work with my aunt and uncle, and I discovered something that wasn't at home, and that was peacefulness.
Hmm.
And of course, I was the oldest of six. My dad had a lot of angers. He was my stepdad. When I came back to Louisiana, back home to Oklahoma, I said, I don't want to live here. I want to go back to Louisiana. Life was better. And of
Hmm.
course, my mother at 15 gave birth to me, which made my grandmother 34.
Hmm.
Grandma always wanted me to live with her. And she said, you can't go to Louisiana, but I'll let you live with grandma. Well, that's when the nightmares started. I started having a lot of nightmares about it was about my dad, it's about the world. It's kind of strange, but I had a dream that I killed my dad, and then the old lady on the other street, which I didn't know. It's not like I actually saw it, but it's that feeling. And so, of course, my grandmother at the time, which is still today, she's 96 years old, and
Wow.
she she's Christian, always at the church. And so she bribed me to drive the car to and fro church. So I did the church thing. And of course, I had these torments. It didn't work. I did what the guy said. So I started studying the book myself and discovered that, you need to be a student of truth and applying truth. And it just led me down a path. And then I found and my grandma, since I was the only child now, because everybody else was there. So um, I had my own bedroom, my own telephone, and I still had these nightmares. And so there was on TV this encyclopedia called Psychology Today, and there's all these different ones. And I started reading it and learning about psychology. I don't know which book it was. I'll say 16 or something. And it was a sexuality one, and they mentioned erogenous zones. Well, I'm 15 years old, girls on the radar.
Mhm.
And so one day I was at a bookstore and I saw erogenous zones, a book about erogenous zones.
Mhm.
And so I bought the book, brown paper bag, took it home, closed the door, locked it, started reading it. And it wasn't about those parts that I wanted to learn about. It was Wayne Dyer's Your Erroneous Zones.
Mm.
This book actually started angling my thinking about myself, about why I have problems. So
Mm.
then I started searching about the mind, hypnosis, etc. And, fast forward, 18 years old, 19 years old, 22 years old. Um, my wife to be was at church. And before we got married, she said I was sexually abused as a child by my father. And of course, I was, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know how to help. I couldn't even help my own stuff, much less hers. So I just said, no big deal. We'll move on. Well, this stuff boiled up in our relationship, especially about 18 years into the marriage.
Mm.
And it actually because my daughter reached the same age as when she started getting abused. So then I wanted to help her. Of course, so
Mm.
here it is. I have my own stuff,
Mhm.
but I thought if I could help her, my life would get better.
Mm.
And so I actually bought a tape series and Anthony Robbins, Your Unlimited Power.
Mm.
And that was actually educating me how the brain works.
Mm.
And that's what really fascinated me because one, I love my wife. I want to help my wife. I want to help my kids. I want to help me. This opened the door to understanding mental mechanics, why we're messed up. Are we really messed up? And how
Mhm.
we have successfully created our problems, not
Mhm.
knowingly, because, we think that we're broken. There's something wrong with us. We're the only one, the black sheep of the family. And there was no way out. But this started educating me.
Mm.
And of course, at that time, I had a mobile home, 80 junk cars behind the home because, I was uneducated. I dropped out of college. By biblical studies, my major. I couldn't pass English too. I tried 3 times. So I
Mm.
thought, well, I just have to raised my kids, and my wife had a good job. I was a stay-at-home father, and I bought and sell cars. So this was my journey. My journey was to help not only my wife, but myself and my kids. And she had physical pains, lots of pains. It would move from here to there. And, one morning, I came into the bedroom. She's down at the foot of the bed, and she had pain, and before that, I did Anthony Robbins. I wanted to find someone who taught NLP. I didn't feel comfortable with the guy. And the one I said, can I talk about your students? He pointed at the tapping modality, EFT. From my trainings, I know that we are all successful people. We're successfully ill. We're successfully financially broke. Or wealthy, depends. And it's because the brain uses information to create. And so I bought, and then one of the ladies said, well, you should try emofree.com, which is Gary Craig stuff. And then I started watching this stuff. I already had the foundation of how the mind works, the mechanics of it, but this tapping modality was a new angle. And again, his belief system is not a healthy belief system. That means the cause of all problems is a disruption in your energy system. And basically, it's the same motif. The reason why there's something wrong with you is because inside you, something's broken. And I don't believe that. I believe that we are very dynamic. Our brain has a survival system that keeps us in alignment where we come from. So I kind of veered away from that idea. But this modality, a psychosensory process, why does it work? And it actually works very quickly in the hands of the person who knows what they're doing. So that's my beginning. And my whole purpose was not only to help my family, but to help myself. And she's at the foot of the bed, and she has pain in her stomach. And of course, she and I both watched the videos, and we're learning. And I said, have you tried tapping on it? She said, it hurts too bad. I said, can I help you with it? She said, fine. So a couple of rounds, the pain's gone.
Wow.
Why does that work? Why is it that you can tap on your face and say certain things and the physical pain fades away? That was my mission, to understand why the mind and how the mind and body work together.
Right. And it was interesting. It's interesting, though, with your modality, because you're talking so much about the neuroplasticity and the mindset, but you've actually figured out a trauma healing technique and it works for both, which is so interesting, because I kind of separate those two things a little bit. Like, trauma work is one thing and mindset work is one thing. But the way you're describing it, you think of it as the same thing, hey?
It is the same. You can't separate it. Now, again, what is trauma? Post-traumatic stress disorder. First of all, it's not a disorder. Trauma actually is an education on how to survive in the world. If you think about it, trauma is a traumatic experience. Now, the weird thing about traumatic experiences, a little girl falls down and she knocks her front teeth out. From that point on, she thought she was ugly and no one loved her. That is a traumatic experience to a child. To move from one home to another home, a bigger home, is a traumatic experience for a child, because she lost all of her friends. She lost the comfort of this. So these are traumas, but they're also education. And it's teaching us how to survive. Now, of course, if you have an abusive brother or sister or parents or whatever, or you go to school and they're bullied at school, these are traumas, but they're also educating you how to survive the world. And unfortunately, sometimes we are introduced to worlds that we don't actually like. But this is our world, and this is who we are, and this is how we're to operate. So trauma is really an emotional education to survive. And the weird thing is our brain captures it, organizes it, and replicates it in our future. And so again, there's a lot of programs out there like DNRS, for example. So first of all, they don't know how to change trauma. They don't know how to deal with trauma. So, okay, push
they
trauma
don't touch it. Yeah.
and try to be positive. Now, here's the
Exactly.
problem. Here's the problem is I got a cup full of all my abuses, hurts, and pains, and fears and phobias, and it's full. Right. And they say, be positive. And how are you going to put it in there if it's full of what you don't want? The problem is, it's just like dieting. If you don't change the diet, the emotional reasons why you eat,
Yeah.
you go on a diet, and now while you're on a diet, you feel good, you're kind of losing weight, you still have the battle within you. But as soon as you go back to normalcy, all the stuff that's in there is going to show up. It's going to make you sick again. You're going to do the same thing. So my belief is, as you go inside, make adjustments inside your memories, which is neuroplasticity, update them to where you change them to where what you'd like to have. And you start being from the inner world. And then you don't have to try to pretend or try to be positive, because you are positive from inside.
Right.
The biggest problem is that is sometimes, like, I've worked with a lot of people with severe illnesses. I mean, you talk about the worst: Hashimoto's disease, lupus, POTS, fibromyalgia, ME. As a matter of fact, on Wednesday, I'm going to do an interview with a woman named Ronnie. Now, she came to my system in a wheelchair with an implant in her hip so she can kind of walk.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So she goes see one of my practitioners that I've trained. And so she comes in a wheelchair, and 4 days later, she can kind of walk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm doing a training in Greece, and she comes there, and I pull her up several times in a session. She bought some sessions with me. On Friday, she's dancing on top of the table.
Wow.
This is no lie. I have video proof of everything. Matter of fact, her testimonials everywhere.
Mm.
But it's the neuroplasticity of the mind. It's how we hold memories.
That's so interesting. And why do you have a theory? Because our audience is mostly MECFS, long COVID. Do you have a theory as to why these traumas result often in chronic illness for some people, whereas some people have lots of traumas and they don't get these, like, do you have a theory?
Well, there's many reasons. One, some people are very mentally and emotionally focused on the physical kinesthetic feelings, which means they can actually build on top of it. There is the hypnosis or the I call it the voodoo of this culture. And you go to the doctor says you got this disease, and then you'll never be able to walk again. You go blind and you'll be impotent. Some people believe that, and they take it, and what they do is they imagine what they say, they build and create from what is said, and then they actually produce what this is. By the way, this is all trance work, it's hypnosis work, it's self-affirmations. And when we go back and people replay bad experiences to the brain, we call the subconscious brain, we call it the intelligent idiot. That means you teach it how to use a knife, it'll cut everything up in spite of the good sense. So this part of us will stay in alignment with where we come from, even though we consciously say we don't like it, but we actually replicate it, we produce it, we think about it, we feel it, and we manifest it. And others do not. It's basically internal processing of information. And then the weird thing is, our traumas could represent people. It could represent a relationship with our mean brother, our mean alcoholic mother, or abusive father, and therefore we stay in alignment with the programming. A lot of people have chronic fatigue, not chronic fatigue, but multiple chemical sensitivities. A lot of times, not all, like, for example, there's a woman named Phyllis McDonald. She was a nurse, not a psychiatric nurse, but she was a nurse. And her chronic and multiple chemical sensitivity got so bad she couldn't even leave her home. She was locked in her room. Her kids couldn't come and see her. Soaps, etc., controlled her whole existence. All right. And then she started watching my trainings and started watching the videos, applying what I said. And one time she cried, calling her husband. She said, "Robert says I'm doing it to me." And again, she doesn't know she's doing it to you. All she's doing is worrying. Do you realize when people worry, they actually create a movie, create feelings and emotions of what they worry about, which is also an emotional affirmation.
Yeah, I know. It's so huge. The fear piece in this illness is so critical, but it's also so screwed up because you're sick. So of course you're going to have a lot of fear. So it's kind of self-perpetuating in a really cyclical way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've experienced too. But it's also like, I talked to an expert in neuroplasticity who was talking about how different illnesses are easier to transform than others. Like chronic fatigue can be a little more difficult because it is a cellular process that's going on. That was really interesting. But I definitely see what you mean in terms of the self-perpetuating, and I can even look at indications from before I was sick of how I was always catastrophizing when I would get certain symptoms. And I
Yep.
think that can be quite common. I'm not going to
That's a
generalize to
yeah.
everyone.
That's a self-hypnosis program. And
Mm,
here's the bizarre thing, Dr. Eric Robbins is a friend of mine. And so he's a urologist. And of course, he has clients that come in and they got areas down there that have problems. And one of the things he asked, he says, well, any abuse growing up as a child?
mm.
And he says, invariably, there's always something.
Yeah,
And he
most
says,
doctors don't look at that.
oh,
Yeah.
they don't, again, they can't fix that. A psychologist can't fix that either, right?
Yeah.
And so here it is. You go to the doctor and they say, well, you got ulcers, therefore you have a bad stomach. They don't say, what in your life are you worried about?
Right.
Where are your emotional concerns? Because again, the happiness is a chemical problem. Depression is a chemical creation too.
Hmm.
So again, the cells do naturally respond to your thinking. Right now, as you listen to this, you can stop and say, okay, do I have a happy memory? And you stop, you think about a happy memory, you feel happy, your body now cellularly will be speaking happy feelings. Now, if you have a trauma or a fear or a worry, all you got to do is stop and think about it. Your body follows that. So my entire system is modeled after this one concept. Whatever you think, your body follows. Whatever you hold in your mind, your body produces.
Mm,
And if you can change what's in here, which changes what's in the cup, you change your whole life in existence. And
right.
that's
Yeah.
really what we're after. And the problem is that people have been so emotionally conditioned by unhealthy emotionally family members or experiences or doctor traumas or school traumas or religious fears and phobias.
Yeah.
Phyllis, her biggest programming was the horrible fear of being a little girl laying in her bed, fear of burning in hell.
Yeah.
She emotionally conditioned her to be so afraid of the world. And then, of course, as a nurse, she sees horrible things. Guess where this goes? It goes right in here. And then all of a sudden, the emotional dynamics growing up as a child shifts from the emotions floating around in the home environment to now it's floating around in wavelengths or smells or chemical sensitivities. I see this a bunch. But again, if you go to a system and they can't change the number one cause of all problems, full stop, memories, internal representations.
Mm.
You change that, the cycle ends.
Yeah. And I mean, from experience, I'm agreeing with you. It's just hard when there's no scientific ability to like prove that. Obviously, your proof is in the pudding in terms of your results, but do you see any way that like science could help to like actually, I don't know, is there a way we could show this in a biological sense, do you think?
Well, even with logic and science too, the problem is there's a lot of things science can't prove that is true.
Yeah.
And bowing down to the great scientific project or the scientific research issue, the problem is all research is only as good as those who are financing the research.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need proof outside of yourself, then the problem goes back to the same problem. My parents broke me. My parents caused me problems. And the only way I'm going to heal is science can give me the right drug, the right operation. And of course, it goes back to what is very scientifically known is that it's called the placebo effect. Now, of course, the placebo effect, you hear with a lemon in the mouth of the researcher saying this placebo is ruining our good research, which basically means people are getting a fake drug, a fake operation, and they heal. Now, what is it? Is it the sugar pill that's healing them? Is it the fake operation healing them? No, it's internal emotional processes. So scientifically has proven that the mind can heal itself in spite of a sugar pill.
Right.
Also, science has proven that you can have the right drug, the right operation, and yet you're still sick, you die.
Yeah.
So again, science has clearly proven that the mind can heal itself. So placebo means the mind's great ability to heal itself in spite of the fake sugar or the fake operation. Nocebo effect is the mind's great ability to not heal in spite of how good the drug is and how good the operation is. And many of my clients have gone to every doctor and they say, we don't know what's wrong with you, but they know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then of course, then they go and they do an internet search and they find some disease that they think they have. And they go to the doctor and they test it and say, you don't have that. But yes, I do, because internal of the creation of it.
Yeah. And then they get in the fear cycle for sure. I've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's start talking about Faster EFT specifically. How do you describe Faster EFT to someone who's just your general explanation of what it is?
Eutaptics FasterEFT. Eutaptics is a training system that we train FasterEFT, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what is Eutaptics FasterEFT? Eutaptics is a system based on memories. It's a neurological system that goes in and identifies how you create a problem, how you manifest it, and how to change it. So it's a training system it's an operating system that uses memory, addresses memory, the kinesthetic feelings. That's why the tapping, the psychosensory process works. And it's about thinking. It's about how the mind works. I had a lot of people say, I've been using FasterEFT for 5 years and it's not working. I said, first of all, you're not using FasterEFT if it's not working, because FasterEFT is not a tapping modality. It's a neuroplasticity modality. It's about memories. And again, when we do this, we give you, the client, I mean, my goal is when you come to see me, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to help clean up your head so that you can see clearly. Secondly, I'm going to educate you. I'm going to educate you how you work and how you're actually very successful at being miserable. And I show you the pieces that you're doing. And then we're going to give you tools and we're going to update those pieces so that you can't be miserable anymore. And this is where we do the positive stuff. Because when you fall down and you hurt your knee and it hurts, what we do is we replay the pain of that. And we ask ourselves, what happens if it gets worse? What happens if I go to the doctor and they cut my leg off? Or we make up stories. So what we do is we use the same thing that your brain does naturally, and we do it in a positive way. So now you have a memory that you went to the doctor and there's a horrible experience. So now we go to the memory, we release the emotions of it. We rewrite the story in your mind, embellish it where it feels so good. You're actually reprogramming yourself by updating the negative memories inside you. Because there's a belief system that we operate from that memories in your head is not the real thing. But when you remember it, it feels real. You go into that state of hypnosis called the memory trance. Because again, the limbic system operates, it grabs the whole experience, encodes it in all the cortices. And then when you ring the bell, you salivate or you feel like pain, and it's a pain rehearsal program. And so what we do is Eutaptics FasterEFT is a program that empowers the individual, educates them on how they are actually using their brain to cause them harm or to cause them great good. And we show them how to redesign their future. And that's what we do. So it's a self-empowering system with an education and a way to update and to create something better. And the good thing is, of course, we sell a training system where, we train you to be a practitioner, but the whole system is really heal yourself. That means we're teaching you how to heal yourself. And you get lots of free sessions. So again, it's a community that supports you. It's a community that helps each other.
Right, because they're practicing, right?
And they're practicing on each other and they're supporting, and you'll find your best friend. And that's what people do. I talk to my level 3 or 4 practitioners. I say, hey, Mark, who's your practitioner friends? She goes, oh, I see Rita or I see somebody else. And so that means when I have a problem today, I call my buddy, they help me work through it, and I move through my life. So it's a self-oiling system. And of course, my upper levels, like level 3 and 4, they're required to give 10 hours away to lower level practitioners, level 1 and 2. And some of my people who, severely ill with all kinds of mental crazy stuff, they've received 22 hours of free sessions, and her psychologist says, you don't even look like the same person.
Right.
And she says, my relationships changed. My husband changed. I'm not so afraid. I'm not a bad person anymore. It's because they learn how to be in control of themselves.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of who it's for and who it's not for, are there certain people you would say either this is definitely designed for you, or maybe these are not the people that this is meant for?
Yeah, this is not meant for people who don't want to move forward.
Right.
This is
But
not,
everybody thinks they do.
again, how many times we've had people who come to my system and they can list at least 20, 30, or 50 modalities that didn't work for them.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who are sick and tired of being sick and tired. So that it will not work for people who don't want to work on themselves. It will not work with people who want to blame everybody else for their problems. It will not work for people who don't show up. And it won't work for dead people. It doesn't help them at all, unless they're inside your head.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, going through the process itself, it was very fascinating to me, honestly. Like the first thing that I was asked was to send in a list of my traumas or emotional events in my life that I felt may have contributed, to my illness, or it didn't even specify
Right.
that, but a
Right.
list of events,
Right.
plus 3 positive memories, which I know is
Mhm.
an important part of it. But I can imagine for some people, just having to come up with that list might be a little
Mhm.
overwhelming for them. Have
Right.
you had that experience? People say
Yeah.
that before?
Yeah. So we know in our system that people come to us from all different levels of pain. We know
Mhm.
that. All right. So if we have somebody, just to be able to pick up the phone call and to show up is enough trauma.
Yeah.
We know that. So the system is so adjustable to the client. I have a client today that has, we asked for the list and they didn't have a list. I said, there's no problem. I can help you with the list. For
Okay.
some people, it is incredibly scary just to be able to look inside their head. I
That's
know.
what I was thinking. Yeah.
And so what we do is we meet them where they are.
Hmm.
And again, they have to tell us where they are because we don't know.
Hmm.
And so there's different ways that we approach. It's not like a one shoe fits all. It's a very adjustable, depending on the client who comes to see us and where they are emotionally. I remember Kathy Beckman. She was many, many years ago. She had so much pain, so much trauma. She couldn't do a list. And I don't have to have a list. The reason why we ask for a list is because I can make a lot of changes in a single session, go really deep and clean up a bunch of memories and help update them to where they can feel a shift. Now, I want to pause right here. Like, for example, I'm going to use you as an example. This is not you. So you've been beaten, abused, raped, and traumatized by everybody, right?
Hmm.
And so you have 500 memories of bad experiences, and we work on 3. A natural side effect will be 1, you can feel really peaceful and sleep really well, and or your mind goes, I got more memories, and there could be
Right.
what we call an abreaction to the session. Again, like with Deirdre, she said, I feel like I'm getting worse every session. I said, go back and check what we did. What we did worked, but you have so many memories and traumas. We have to go through and clean them all up. Now, if you don't clean them up, if you don't change them, guess what you got? The life that you don't want. So again, there is a boot camp part of this. We do the positive stuff. We balance it out. We go to a bad memory, we update it and turn it positive. We say, go practice this. We want you to practice happy memories. We want you to practice goals and dreams. We give you affirmations. We give a lot of different parts that help move you forward. But the most important key is that we meet you where you are. Now,
Right.
I've worked with the worst of the worst. We talk about severe sexual traumas, from beatings, deaths, though you can name everything. And of course, I go, depending on the person, how they can handle and what they can do. Sometimes we don't even get close to any memories because we're still addressing what they feel like today.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece of it because some people have already done a lot of trauma work, like myself. So
Mhm.
it wasn't hard for me to write a list, but
Right.
definitely some people
Mhm.
have purposely blocked all that
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know lives can be
Right.
very difficult. So it is a good, maybe not warning, but a good note to
An
say,
understanding.
like, are you ready to go into this?
Right.
And if you're only able to address part of it, are you
Mhm.
ready to keep going back? Because some
Right.
people, they're like, I can't afford it or something, and
Right.
then they'll get stuck.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there is some
Well,
good
Well,
notes
the big
there.
difference in the trauma work that we do, and as you know too, we go back to the memories that you worked on and they were still alive. That means they still had juice there.
Yeah.
When we get done, we're going to make sure that when we're done with this memory, that you have a positive experience instead of a negative one.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the trauma work out there, they don't actually create an understanding, they create a logical this or that, but the memory still has a lot of parts there that is still driving the operating system.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do, and what we do, is when we're finished with it, and we know we're finished, because when you go back, say, try to bring it back, she says, well, I don't care, it doesn't bother me, I have a good feeling now. I say, okay, let's go to the next one. So there is a completion. And that's some of the biggest things I see in error with modalities, is they don't know how to completely finish a memory to where it's no longer alive. We logically know it happens, but it has no value. It doesn't feel like anything. It's almost like I went to the store, bought a carton of milk, came home, and had a bowl of cereal. It means nothing. So that's the
Yeah,
big.
no, I definitely agree with you. And I wanted to ask you about this idea of re-traumatization, because it's come up in a bunch of in interviews. Some are more fearful of it, some are not. And I
Mhm,
know you and I talked about it as
mhm.
this, you not completing this. Is it the same thing when people get re-traumatized? It's because
Right.
they get stuck in their memory?
But it's not that they get stuck. You have to understand how memory works. All right. So you have a trauma. I'm going to make up one. Your dog died. And it's very traumatic. It really broke your heart. Right. And
Mhm.
of course, if to be re-traumatized is for me to go and kill your second dog. Okay.
Mm,
Now, if I say a dog, and all of a sudden you have an emotional reaction to the word dog, that's not a re-traumatization. That's your brain giving you again what you still have alive within you.
mhm.
All right. So, but when we're done with the experience of the death of your dog, what you'll be done is you'll be left with a good feeling. That means we all know logically everybody dies. It's a part of our system. Our dog died. It's a part of how life is, right? But when we go back to the dog, what you're going to feel is the good memories inside you. You're going to see and feel the lovingness of your dog. This is your gift. Now, most people, when they're re-traumatized, they go back to the experience of finding their dog dead or taking it to the vet and they had to put it down. So this memory is still alive inside them. It's not a re-trauma, it's a reenactment, it's a re-feeling, it's bringing up to the surface this experience is called learning, survival learning experience. And so, but when we're done, you can talk about your dog that has died and you smile because you feel the love, you
Right,
feel the connection, and you're not watching your dog die.
right,
So
right,
the difference that makes a difference is the finishing, the finalization of making peace to what happened. Again, I believe that every experience has good and bad. It's almost like a present. They give you a present, and whatever you get two presents, a good memory and a bad memory. Which one you open determines how you feel. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the bad one, clean it up to where you only have the good memory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what we focus on, we get. And a lot of people have been, and why do we focus on bad things? Why is it so important that the bad things are more real, more important than all the good things? And there's a reason it's for survival. It's like the little girl whose mother picked her up every day at school at the same time. But one day she was 2 hours late. Why does the little girl now only remember the one?
Mm,
Because that one had pain and she didn't want to re-experience. The problem is that she keeps re-experiencing it because this is called an episodic memory. It becomes important and
right,
it overshadows the 365 other times that she was picked up.
right,
So
right,
once we make peace with that, then all of a sudden all the good memories show up. Before she only saw one, and that's the bad one.
right. So it's like now in her daily life, there's triggers that are triggering that initial
Right.
memories that
It brings
are
it up to the
causing
present moment.
the reaction.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's how I understand it too. Yeah. Um, so getting back to the process, the next when we get into the session, you start with positive memories. And why is it you start with letting someone like foster some positive memories?
Right. Well, the importance is that we understand logically negative memories are hypnosis. It's a form of trance. We know that. And when you remember a happy memory, you feel happy. That is a trance too.
Mhm.
And so what we want to do, and and there's a woman on the internet, her name is Daniela Sheeler. And what she did is she demonstrated how memories are rewritten and updated and changed. And they're looking for a drug. And we have what we call defractionation. Now,
Mm.
defractionation is a complete operating system. So when you go to a bad memory, you go into a trance. And what we're going to do is we want to pull you out of that trance. We want to flatten out the emotions of the memory. And we want to bring you back to now. We want to go to a happy, good feeling, because again, when you go to a bad memory while you're feeling bad, you're adding more bad to the memory. So we know in order to update that memory, we got to interject new feelings and emotions into the memory. Therefore, we're updating the memory to where it's not a bad memory. So we use happy memories as a resource to pull you out of the bad feeling and put you back into what we call a better state of mind. Now you're feeling good, and then our intention, second part of this, the intention is to go back to the memory and update and change some more. Therefore, by the time we're done, the memory has been updated to where it doesn't feel bad and you have a healthy understanding about it. So it's about hypnotic states, it's about trances, it's about how our brain naturally works. Now, again, you're feeling depressed today. Are you having a pain now? And then you go, I feel really pained. I have a pain in my body. Am I dying like what happened to me when I was 5 years old? So we'll go back, we're feeling bad now, and we go back to 5 years old. Now we're compounding the memory of the 5-year-old experience. Pain oftentimes is a replay of previous pains, and it compounds, gets bigger and bigger.
Mm.
So we're just undoing the whole operating system of the memories.
Mm. Yeah, it's very similar in a lot of ways to pendulation, which is Peter Levine's technique of going in and out of the experience. His is a little bit more of a somatic thing than a brain thing, but it is similar. I find it really fascinating, but you also add in the tapping with it. Can you
Right.
talk a little bit about why tapping is a part of the process and
Right.
what its function is?
Well, somatic also is a kinesthetic thing.
Okay.
So the biggest problem, again, with most people, they don't know how to deal with this, memories, right?
Okay.
So why tapping? Well, it's very logical. First of all, when you are having a negative feeling or a negative memory, you feel it in your body. So immediately, if I say, for example, you have a bad experience with a dog. As I say dog, immediately dog comes in, you feel it, right? That's just how the brain works. So what we do is we go to memory that's unpleasant, memory, and then as soon as you go to bad memory, what happens? This happens. So what we're doing is we're up,
Yeah.
right, the body reaction. So what we're doing is we're creating a defrac. That means it's a simplified pattern interrupt that NLP has, but it's more complex than that. So when you go to a bad memory and we tap, tapping is a relaxation process. Also, it diverts your attention from the feeling in the memory. Therefore, it's going to update the memory with what we would call a relaxation feeling. Plus, we're adding more to it. We're going to a happy memory and we're feeling good. Right. Then when you go to the memory, your brain will take these relaxed feeling, happy memory, and it's going to update that memory. And then when the brain rewrites the memory, it's going to have a new feeling attached to the memory.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, because I've been reading a lot about polyvagal theory, just the act of movement, it activates the sympathetic nervous system. If you're starting to like get into a state maybe where you could end up in freeze, it can actually kind of get you out of it, I think. That's kind of how I understand it. Like the actual just act of moving can be soothing.
The true key to a complete shift and change in memory and body is I say that the changes are in the details. Inside the memory, there's many details, and if you don't finish all the details, you still got the problem. It's like there's a belief system and identity we create with problems, memories, pains, etc. So it needs to be a complete, thorough shift and change inside of the mind and the body. Now, remember the body. Now, a lot of people blame the body. My body is making me sick. My body is the enemy, and it's not. The body is an honest expression of unconscious and conscious resources. So Your body's not fat because they have a fat body. Your body is fat because you eat when you're not hungry. You finish your plate. You use food to escape. You eat food to find love. You find food to soothe you, to babysit you, to be accepted. So these are the programs that need to be changed so that your body will follow the eater.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I found it kind of hard sometimes though, too, when we'd go into the memories and then you'd be like, come out, and we would start the tapping. But my mind didn't want to leave it, because I
Right.
was like trying to figure it out and really like build the picture. It was hard for me to completely come in and out. Is it really necessary to completely
Yes.
remove yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, the biggest problem with EFT, if anybody tried EFT doesn't work for me.
Mhm.
That's the common things. I say Faster EFT. I already tried EFT, it didn't work. I said, this is not EFT.
Right.
And the problem is that the bad memories, and another issue that I see, there's two issues here. The bad memory is stronger than the tapping.
Right.
And again, a lot of times when people try to tap, it doesn't work, is because tapping and the way they teach is focus on the problem, focus on the memory, and then tap, and maybe that'll work. Well, if the memory is stronger than the tapping loses. And so another big problem with people, they try to understand logically why I have a problem. Listen, there's been people who spent 20, 30 years in therapy. They understand every reason why they were raped, beaten, and abused, and they still got the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The logic that we're working from is not conscious logic, it's unconscious logic. And unconscious breaks down to something so incredibly simple. Ring the bell, feed the dog. It's emotional links inside the brain. It's connections, it's kinesthetic responses, it's images, it's sounds. And when you break the links and you update the links, the problem fades off and disappears. The problem is that some people are very analytical and they want to know logically why I'm screwed up. And the reason why you're actually screwed up is that you're not screwed up at all, is that your brain is replicating your past today. And it's not because you're born a girl or born a boy. It's not because of your astrology sign. It's because of memories.
Right.
That's why.
Right. It's interesting though, because I have also had a lot of benefit from somatic experiencing that. Essentially, the idea is that when we were in the event, we didn't finish the emotion then. So we actually need to kind of process it now. So feel the feelings like if something happened in your childhood, if you let yourself feel it, the idea is that it will pass. But this is a different ideology.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely can say it benefited me, but
you have to understand that a lot of people say, well, if you just feel it and let it pass, it goes away. And be honest with you, a lot of people feel a lot of stuff and it doesn't pass, it compounds and gets bigger. All right. So again, rehearsing feeling bad doesn't get rid of bad. It just makes you good at feeling bad. Right. There is a positive experience because again, you have to understand, people actually fall in love with their misery. And they create a whole identity and value system from their misery. And then they become talk hosts of miseries. It's like one of the persons that's another person out there that they talk about all the pains and misery, but they don't want to let go of their own pain and misery because it's a value. It's an identity. It gives them a purpose in life. It's connected to my brother or to my aunt or to my uncle or to my miserable childhood abuse that I experienced at 5, So there's a part of us that doesn't want to let go of the miserable past because if I let it go, what bad things will happen? I said nothing, except you won't be practicing miserableness. And again, people hold on to their pain thinking it gives me value, and it does give you value. It keeps you in pain. It gives you a purpose to fight. It keeps you the purpose of trying to have whatever it is you have, but it still locks you in. It's like the woman who came. I was doing a seminar in the UK in Kent, Dover, and she had a horrible fear. She couldn't trains, planes, automobiles, high anxiety, horrible anxiety. So she came up. I volunteered. I pulled her on up. I addressed the memories. And the panic attack's gone. Matter of fact, she didn't have panic attacks at all on trains, planes, or automobiles. But a part of this that I didn't know at the time, she still had an identity tied to I'm a person who had panic attacks.
Right.
And every time she goes, she's looking for them. She can't find them.
Mm.
So there is that identity that people have created with us. And there's nothing wrong with being sick if you like being sick. The woman calls me and she books a session. And that's back when I did phone sessions. That's a long time ago. She said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And of course, I try to make things light and fun, because people take their problems too seriously. And when they take it too seriously, they seriously have a problem. And she said, I'm constipated. And I said, so that means you're full of shit then, right? She kind of laughed. And I go, so what's the problem? She says, I've always been sick. And it's come to find out. So I started getting a list, because at that time, I hadn't evolved that much. I do a list. And so one of the things is that she's always going to the doctor. And it really escalated 5 years ago. And so one of the questions I asked, what happened 5 years ago? She says, well, I don't know. I said, well, think about it. What happened 5 years ago? Oh, my mother died. And I said, okay, anything else? So we go back to childhood. So what about your childhood? So she said, I was a latchkey kid, which means I came home alone and my mother was a nurse. She's always gone working. And she goes, except when I'm sick, mom stays home with me.
Right.
So in her brain, wired together, if I'm sick, I'm loved. And that's what she created. So when I start working on her, and all of a sudden she goes, well, hold on again. If I let go of this illness, who will love me?
Right.
And she said, oh, no, hold on. If I let go of this illness, that means I'll have to get a job.
Yeah.
And hold on, if I let go of this illness, what will I do with my life? I said, you'll create a whole new one. So her belief system, her pain was tied to being loved. Now, when her mother died 5 years ago, she got really sick. And guess who she got to see frequently? Doctors and nurses, which also represent what? Mama's love.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might resonate with a lot of people out there. It resonates with me as well. And it's about like not getting our needs met. And then, yeah, when we have an illness, all of a sudden our needs are getting met. And it's so interesting how that happens commonly with chronic illness. Another thing you mentioned quite early in our first call actually was the connection between sexual experiences, negative sexual experiences, and chronic illness, which honestly was a little triggering for me, just for it to be brought up by a man I don't know. And to say, let's dive right into this. So it is kind of something that got my back up a little bit, I have to admit. But can you talk a bit about that connection between why that's such an important area to look at?
Yeah, I've seen so much of this. And again, I've worked with everything you could imagine. The worst sexual experiences, worst physical experiences, murders, deaths, you name it. I volunteered 9 years in drug rehabs. I've heard the worst, right? So for me, again, it definitely would be triggering for anyone, even if they were a man, even if it was a woman, it's just normal. But I do know that there is this link. And there's links because one, physical trauma, physical beatings is a direct connection to the unconscious. Sexual traumas are undesired, unwanted sexual exposure. Sexual witnessing, religious exposure, extreme emotional exposure. All of these are so linked and tied to the value of self. And so when we go to, again, this modality is not a wimpy modality. That means we're direct, we love you enough, we care about you enough that we're willing to tread the dark alleys of your mind. We're willing to go into the deepest abyss, whatever you experience, because one, we know that if we change that, you're free. I know that. I've done it so much. I know that personally. And so that's the reason why we go there, because this is sexual exposure, physical beatings, emotional trauma are so close to the soul. It's so close to our identity. It's so close to who we are and how we are to operate in relationships. It affects every part of us. And so this is so autonomic. It's so unconscious. It so controls our whole existence. And if you find a therapist who's afraid to help you go to where you need to go to heal, it will take forever and may never heal and change. I know that. I've had people, and some of the people who used to be severely ill, I mean, Pott's disease and lupus and everything. And it's not because we weren't afraid to go. Sometimes I had to address my issues because I have to go there, because I know that if I help someone, especially that little boy, that little girl, whose whole identity and value was shifted and changed because someone followed in the bathroom and messed with them. And if I can set them free from that, their whole life changes. So I'm willing to do it because I care. Now, at first, it was very scary for me because, again, I had my own stuff I had to clean up. I worked with my ex-wife. She had this stuff. It so affected her value. But when you clean it up, it's like you're a different person. It's totally different. So that's why we do that, is because in all my upper level, highly trained practitioners, they all are willing to, because they know if you go to where the problem is solved.
Yeah. The one thing, I guess, with the fact that it's faster EFT, right? We're trying to get this, you have 2-hour sessions, and I know you're trying to help people in a fast way, because in most efficient way. Like I'm not saying this is a negative thing, but when you have a therapist, they spend a lot of time building the relationship and really giving people, getting to know them very slowly. And even with pendulation, I've seen it taught. It's such a slow process to make sure people feel safe in their nervous system. Whereas there's a fast element of this, right?
Right.
And I'm just wondering if for some people it might be maybe too fast, but you've already acknowledged that.
There's no too fast. Again, remember, we adjust to our clients.
Right.
A majority of the people who will come to see me personally, I'm not their first rodeo. They've been watching me on YouTube. They know my passion, they know my skill, they know what I'm doing.
They trust you already. Yeah.
Because again, I am 100% on the table.
Right.
There's no secrets, there's no lies. It's just, I know how it works, and you go watch my videos. You'll see the testimonials of amazing life changes. This is the real deal. Your search is over. You found something that addresses the cause of all problems, which is memory. You change memory, you set yourself free. Now, again, there are some people, and I've had some people, they saw my videos and said, no, thank you. And they tried a bunch of other things and said, okay, I'm willing to do it now. I know, and they watch me. I know what I'm talking about. I've done it. I've worked with everything possible. And so this is for the people who said, okay, I'm tired of chasing rainbows. I want something that works. Now, granted, you go and you do, like some people, this woman, she's like 70 something years old. And I did a presentation at the Namaste group, which is, a bunch of energy people. And then she came into my office, and I actually a hotel room, because it was at a hotel. And she said, I gave my second hour away to a friend of mine. And I said, okay, what's the problem? She says, I can't have an orgasm if I hear any sounds in the room. I go, okay, great. Now, this is very odd for me, because that's back in the early days. I said, and the first question said, any sexual inappropriate behavior in your life? All of a sudden, this 67, 70-year-old woman starts crying profusely.
Oh.
And I don't even know what it is, So I started working on her, and about 15, 20 minutes later, and I use a process called defry. And I go, what was it? She goes, I don't know. I just remember as a kid running from the woods, and I saw my grandmother died. All right.
Wow.
And I go, have you been in therapy? She says, Sonny, I've been in therapy for over 60 years. I've tried everything, you name it. I said, like what? She said, Gestalt therapy, primal screen therapy, talk therapy, hypnotherapy. I went to the Essalon. I went to the big vagina and fell into the swimming pool. I go, what is that? She said, rebirthing therapy. I said, never heard of that.
I've heard of it.
And then I said, well, let's go back and bring this problem back. She said, I can't. I don't even remember what it was.
Right.
I said, try harder. She said, I can't. It's over. And that is without me having no content. So sometimes, and we worked with a lot of your memories. You didn't tell me what it was. And I worked with the memories, and we got measurable changes.
The question I wanted to ask you was, if I know you have these courses on your website that people can learn to do this themselves, but what would you see as the pros and cons to doing it like with a practitioner live versus doing the online course version?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's two parts to this. It depends on where the person is emotionally. Like if they can't focus, or they're just too much stuff to study. So I would recommend, working with a practitioner because it'll help what I call lower the emotional intensity around it. Seeing a practitioner can get some big changes faster than if trying to do it yourself, because most people won't do it themselves usually. Now, other people who says, okay, I want to know how it works. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to study it. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to change my life. I recommend doing both, but depend on the emotional state and where you are when you begin. So if you've got a lot of emotional stuff, let somebody clean it up, make it easier for you. Because it's the emotions that keeps you from learning. And of course, it kind of clouds your vision when the concepts that I teach, because, we teach about how the brain actually works and how you're doing certain things inside your head to manifest and produce. But when you're in your head, it says, no, it's really real. But
Blockages,
yeah, it's not really a blockage. It's just a violation of a belief system that they're currently holding. And so what we do is we try to update their understandings, but there's no replacement for knowing how to catch your own fish instead of us fishing for you,
Right.
And that's what we want, is to give you the power to change your life and improve the quality of your life.
Right. Yeah,
Both
that's a really good explanation.
Both is important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I want to talk about the changes too that I've noticed since our session, because the reason I'm having you on, obviously, it's so fascinating to me, and I've seen the results in certain people, and I think that there's something, because for me, my dreams have been a huge indicator of what I'm going through. They give me so many messages. And after our first session, I had a lot of scary, intense nightmares, like murder, really
That's good.
graphic, crazy things happening.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to give you a chance to talk about why you think that is. But then after the second session, where we got to the root of one of my issues that has been coming up in my dreams constantly for years, of these boys in junior high, these boys that didn't like me back, these boys that, I was a chubby kid and I just felt rejection after rejection. And I would replay that in my dreams constantly. And honest to God, Robert, I'm not having those dreams anymore. Now I'm having successful relationships in my dreams, which is so fascinating to me. So talk a bit about dreams in terms of what you think was happening with the crazy terrors after the first session.
Well, the first session, we did some big stuff, big emotion.
Big stuff.
All right, so to understand the unconscious is a metaphoric machine. That means metaphorically, you have a problem today with something outside you. You have an issue with something. This something is a metaphor of what's already inside your head. All right. So when you have dreams is the rawest form of unconscious communication, rawest form. So to heal yourself in dreams is amazing. The best dreams you could have are nightmare dreams, death dreams, toilet dreams, bathroom dreams. And death dreams are really important because it's the unconscious having a conflict with the ending of an old behavior, a death of a behavior. And that's where the conflict, because you understand, the brain captures the whole world as a child and growing up. It sets the world up to how you see it is. Now you come to see Robert and we start changing some of these major emotional traumas. And now they're not there. It creates chaos in the unconscious because it was a foundation that it built some of the other problems with. Now we've updated that. And now all of a sudden the brain is having this chaos. And so death means the ending of an old behavior. Animals in your dreams means you're ending a habit or about a habit. Toilet dreams, bathroom dreams, shower dreams, you're trying to get rid of, wash away, change, transform. So there's a lot of variables in this, but the best dreams are the death dreams and the shower dreams, etc., because it means your brain is ending and changing. And if you wake up from a dream and you feel the anxiety in the dream, you notice the anxiety, you feel it, and we would have you address it and tap it and change it. And
I started doing that. I have had they still come up from school age dreams of the fear of pop quizzes and not being prepared for a test, which I think is probably reflection of not knowing, the imposter syndrome. But that anxiety feeling when I wake up, and then I started tapping
Yeah.
and reassuring myself, and I got that from you for sure. I think it's
Yeah.
really good.
These are great ways to heal the unconscious in a big, profound way. Now, you have to understand also, if you have dreams, let's say you're a female, you have dreams of men. Like if you dream of me, it's not me. It's a
Right.
part of your brain. It's the unconscious. So females who dream about men is about their brain, about their memories. Men who dream about women is about their memories in their brain, inside their head. If you dream about a partner or a brother or a friend or whoever, this is not about them. This is about aspects that they represent in your life. Like if you think of your brother, you're thinking kind and gentle and caring. When you have a dream about your brother in your dream, it's not about him. It's about a part of your brain that's that way. So again, this is strictly straight unconscious communication. Knowing how to adjust dreams can set you free from a lot of old things. And it's very normal, especially if you're addressing big stuff. Again, we were addressing big stuff.
Yeah.
Relationships, and you notice that they show up in your dreams. Now, the death in the dreams is a good thing because it means behavior is ending. Now, here's one of the things I do warn people is that, say, for example, we do a session, or you do any session from anybody, the big mistake people make is they catastrophize what their brain gives them. Like, oh my God, somebody's going to die, or I'm going to die a horrible way. They actually play with the dreams and amplify it and scare themselves to death with it. That's emotional suicide. You don't do that. You just have to understand that you're unpacking the chest of pain, and by the time you're done, the chest will be empty, and you put good stuff in there, and your brain will be giving you pleasant, positive dreams.
Yeah, I have noticed that change. It's so interesting. And the other change I've noticed, and it's so hard with these chronic illnesses because I have been gradually getting better due to all the work I've been doing. But this past week, honestly, I did a hike, I did a hard yoga class, I've done more things than usual, and I'm not getting any PEM, post-exertion malaise, we call it. I've been waiting for it, and it's not coming, and I wonder if it is part of what we did. Yeah,
of course. Remember, we're changing your inner world, and the things that we change, you can't even see between my fingers. This is a concept, a value, an identity.
Yeah,
it's because when you change I mean, just think about it. You fall down, you lose your teeth, and you at that point create a value. I'm ugly and no one loves me. And from that point forward, you operate as if that's a fact. So when we start changing some of these big things, we're so used to it, we actually look for it, go, where is it? Because there's still a little piece here, you're still tied to it. You kind of expect it. Again, remember, you create your value system. And remember, pain is trying to protect you. Pain is trying to keep you safe based on whatever's in there.
Right.
Whatever positive thing is attached to it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Wow. Yeah, I really do think it can be, I mean, I've seen it be so helpful. You've seen it be so helpful to people. I'm wondering, so once you've done this process, if you've helped yourself, do you see this as a lifelong process, like doing this kind of work and learning how to do it and then doing it over and over again? Or is it something you can just do to rid yourself of whatever problem you're dealing with?
There's a two-sided coin here. First of all, if you have no emotional coping skills and you don't practice that's healthy, you'll go back to what didn't work.
Right.
So first of all, I'm training you to live a life of empowerment. That means if something bad happens, you don't wallow in it. You don't tell stories about it. You don't get a tattoo or write a book about it. You address it, you release it, and you move forward. And secondly, you do have memories inside you that cause harm in your future. We go and we clean those up. We update those. So it's almost like having a toothbrush. Use it on the teeth you want to keep, right? If you don't have emotional coping skills, and I've seen this, a client comes in and she took her level 1 training and she had chronic fatigue, horrible chronic fatigue. And so she came and she learned, and she got sessions every night working on her emotional health issues or traumas, etc. And when she left, she didn't have any chronic fatigue. Her pain was gone. It took 7 months, and she didn't go home and use her toothbrush, emotional toothbrush I trained her to use. It took 7 months, the pain started coming back again. Now, it didn't come back. She actually accumulated ideas, emotions, and experiences that started weighing her down. And then she came back again. She explained it. She said, this is what happened. I said, were you tapping? She said, no, I didn't need to. I said, tapping and taking ownership of your mind is not a once of a lifetime deal. It's a daily walk with yourself. And one of the things I always say that the brain is like a temple, right? If you got bad stuff in your temple, you're going to act bad. Your job as a mental janitor is to keep your head clean, which means you're emotionally intelligent, you're handling things in an appropriate way, you're not taking things so personal, you're living your life and you're creating the life you want. So this is not something you can try. You can, and you'll get results, and then you'll go back to your nonsense, the old coping skills that created the health problems in the first place. It's like some of the clients who come in and they were really ill. They come, we work on it, they clean them up, and then they go home. And then they go join a group of hating something, like people who eat meat or hating the injustice of the world, and they end up getting sick again. Now, why did they do that? Well, they're hating something. If you practice hate inside you, you practice danger, and you watch horrible, scary monster movies, you're building something that made the sickness in the first place.
Yeah, that's a huge thing for sure. I tell my clients, like, stop with the news, stop with the CFS groups where people are so negative. It's really, really damaging. And that is an interesting, like, NLP kind of idea, but you're adding like the memories that get stored as being the culprits, which I find really interesting.
But even with logically, if you sit in the seat of evil people, evil, bad things, it's going to get you. It's like the girl who's crying. She was in an AA meeting and she's crying because she's hearing other people's stories. And the guy leans over to her and said, don't make up pictures when they tell the stories. It's that practical. We internalize what we watch. We create stories from what we heard.
Amazing.
Keep your mind clean. Keep your mind clean and sit with good people. Now, don't be afraid of bad things either. You don't want to pack up your bags and take off running. You need to address it and own up. Because there are family members you guys have that you can't stand, or exes or whatever, that makes you sick. We don't want to always run. You want to make peace with your translator of that person. That means you can sit in the room with them and not be controlled by them. You can sit in the room and be entertained by them and not take it personal at all. Because the woman who is she said she's an empath and all the negative energies are getting her. She had to move out to the woods and sleep in her car. I said, hold on a second. There's no negative energies. There's just translations of people's behavior that you've internalized. Learn how to heal yourself.
Yeah. And the last thing in what you recommended was to write these new memories that we had created, like write them on Post-its and put them around. You gave me a new like saying to tell myself, and I put it on my whiteboard and I look at it at least once a day. And I try to remember that new memory. A few of the new memories we redid. I should write them out more. You're right. But that's an interesting piece of the process too, is that having to remind yourself of the new memories.
It's not really reminding yourself, it's rehearsing what you want in your future. What we've done, we've had a bad experience. You know what we have when we do with a bad experience? We replay it over and over again. We dumb questions like, what if it gets worse? What if it happens again? What if? And so we compound and make a bad memory worse, which also makes our illness worse. So I said, let's do the same thing with positive stuff. So we go to a negative memory, update it, we release all the pain in it, and we rewrite the story. Now, you want to rewrite the story. You want to replay the story as if it's real today. You want to practice what you want in your future. What did Gandhi say? Be the change you want to see in the world. In your mind, create what you want to see in the world. It doesn't make you stupid, though. We know that there are people with problems, but we're not taking it home with us. So you practice what you want. And that's what, that you wake up in the morning and you said, okay, what illness will I have today? What pain will show up? Will I be constipated? Will I throw up and puke? Will I get dizzy? You're actually rehearsing what you said you didn't want. And you're using your past history to amplify it and compound it, and it gets worse, or you get better at it. We want to use the exact same thing that the brain does and use it in a way to produce something better.
Yeah, no, I think it's really valuable. And it combines so many things I've learned, but also, yeah, the new piece of changing the memories could be very helpful to people out there. So is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to say about what you teach and what people get out of it? I think this was really helpful.
Well, I think what I teach, to be honest with you, is learning how to like yourself from within yourself,
Mm,
teaching you to be in control of your existence. We are law of attraction machines. That means we attract from what we hold within. So if we learn to change what we hold within, we get exactly plus more from what you practice within. So do the good stuff. And some of you know that it's gotten worse over the years because you perfected it. Even though we think we're broken, you're not. And so I teach how to think and how to operate in the world in a way that's healthy. And then you will impact, if you have children, it'll impact your children. It'll impact your husbands or your wives. And you'll get a better partner in the future because you change the bad partners and the things that you witness as a child. We have a tendency to mirror our relationship with our sister or our brother or the kid on the bus who was mean to you, or we mimic the relationship our parents had, and they didn't have a good. So if we change those in our mind, you don't change them. You don't even change history. You change what your brain will attract to you. So I teach the law of attraction in the boot camp way, which is in your mind way. We're not pretending it's not there. We make peace with it and update it. And then in the future, it'll be different for us.
Yeah, really great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Robert. This was really wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and good job.
Thanks.